26th regular board meeting of Marlborough Township Board of Education at Franklin Field Central Elementary School. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Good evening, everyone. Mrs. Dean? Here. Mr. Dwyer?
Here.
Mrs. Eddy? Here. Mrs. Dow? Here. Mrs. Lulu is not here. Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. Matos? Here. Mrs. Rosenwald? And Mr. Lalanzi?
Here. Please be advised that meetings are being held in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Local Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Adequate notice of the date, time, and attendance sent the advertising by press and news transcript has also been posted in the file with the Marlborough Township Clerk. Copies have also been sent to each district school and other area newspapers in accordance with the law. I'm going to draw your attention to, but I'm not going to read its entirety, statement of videotaping of the local portion of Board of Education meetings, a public session statement, as well as no smoking on school grounds. At this time, it is my extreme pleasure to introduce to you Danielle D-Rob, Raymond Wong, 4th graders at Delphino Elementary School, Matt Slizak, and Sophia Chastilopoulos, 3rd graders at Ashland Elementary School. Lead us to the pledge. Everybody please rise. This is one of those nights tonight where we have some really great presentations. Our first presentation is one of the board looks to look forward to every year. It's when I spoke to the Teachers of the Year on Friday, I told them that there's so many times a year that we can count on our hands, one hand, when we have some really great nights as Board of Education members that we look forward to. It's like graduation, it's the first day of school, it's award ceremonies in the middle schools, and it's tonight, the Teachers of the Year. We have really the best teachers that you could imagine in our town, our district, and these are the best of the best. As you understand what it takes to sit in those seats, it means you are a phenomenal teacher, and you stand out among your peers, and that's what tonight is all about. So Dr. Newton, of course, on behalf of the Board of Education, I congratulate you first before we can get started.
Thank you, President Lalanski. I said a lot of nice things about our Teachers of the Year the other day when they came over. Teachers truly make a difference in the lives of our children. There's no more important role in this world. So I commend you. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for being so special and being so dedicated. So at this time, you want to, principals, we going down the list, or we going right for Mr. Schifferson? Mr. Schifferson, I'll let you make the call. You're all right, there you go. That way.
We haven't rehearsed this. My name is Steve Schifferson. I'm the principal of Robertsville School, and it's my esteemed pleasure to introduce you to Lauren Newman, who is our Teacher of the Year. Lauren has been at Robertsville professionally, she's been there for 10 years. She is the person who you go to when you need the teacher who's going to rescue any child. When you have a child who you have a concern about, or a child who needs to excel, Lauren is our go-to person. Nothing is too hard, nothing is too mundane. She works with her colleagues. She has taught everybody Google and then some. She's an all-around star. No Teacher of the Year is a weak statement when it comes to describe Lauren. The other two parts of Lauren, which will kill me tomorrow, Lauren is also the first Robertsville graduate who became a teacher under my principalship. Yeah, laugh, it's okay. That she reminded me about, I don't know, 10 years ago. She's been with us for 10 years. So she's a born Robertsville child, a born teacher, a born professional, and then the other part that her husband's going to yell at me about. Several years ago, 3 years ago, 3 years ago, we had a special third grade assembly. She just thought it was a third grade assembly. What was special about it is that at the time her boyfriend was hiding behind the curtain, and at the right moment he came out and he proposed to her in front of the entire third grade. Luckily she said yes. Otherwise this probably would have taken a different path. But Robertsville was lucky also to have not just her parents who are here tonight, but her brother and sister as well. So we are a Sherman, now Newman family. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jill Green. I am the principal of Tofino Elementary School, and I'd like to introduce Ellen Chittum, our Teacher of the Year. Ellen has, you can applaud. Ellen has been a teacher in Marlborough Township for over 37 years. When you break that down, it comes to roughly 41,958 hours of classroom time alone. Now, anybody who knows a teacher, that's the tip of the iceberg. I didn't even include the countless hours of planning, parent phone calls, and professional development necessary to stay current with today's educational practices. The late Frank Tofino, the superintendent of schools, saw great qualities in Ellen, and I think he made a great call when he offered her a teaching position at what this building was known as Central. So we thank Frank Tofino. When I was drafting these comments, I came upon a quote that I believe best describes Ellen. She's a teacher who takes a hand, opens a mind, and touches a heart. Ellen educates the whole child. She treats each of her students as individual and respects and embraces their diversity. It's fair to say that Ellen has a unique gift for creating a learning environment that fosters a love of learning and promotes academic growth and achievement. Throughout her tenure, Ellen has earned the respect and admiration not only of her students, but parents, colleagues, and you, the community. Ellen exemplifies what is best in education, and it is my privilege to recognize and honor her as Tofino Central's Teacher of the Year.
Good evening, I'm Sam Hendrickson, and it's my honor to introduce to you Mrs. Jennifer Bruckner, Dugan Elementary School Teacher of the Year. In his book, Awakening the Genius in the Classroom, Thomas Armstrong observes the word genius as derived from two words, Genesis meaning birth, and the word genial meaning joy. For Armstrong, genius translates as the birth of joy. The birth of joy. What a wonderful way to think about our Teacher of the Year's classroom. Among many things, a birthplace of joy. Ms. Jennifer Bruckner brings joy to the act of learning, teaching, creating, singing, even dancing, celebrating children, celebrating life. There is joy in Ms. Bruckner's relationships with our students, their parents, district colleagues, and our Dugan family. Jen creates a magical energy in her lessons, an energy that marries learning and laughter, never using laughter to hurt, rather always to heal. Jen brings her students well beyond the curriculum of school. As she helps them discover their spirit, their most expressive and creative self, she helps them notice and nurture their gifts. But don't just take my word for it. Listen to the voices of our parents in their countless letters to me. Quote, "More than simple praise, Ms. Bruckner is kind and fun and encouraging, truly allowing our daughter to feel confident and believe she could do anything." Quote, "Ms. Bruckner was there in the most difficult time in our daughter's life. Thank you for all of your love and support. You are a godsend." Quote, "In all my years as teacher and parent, I've come to the conclusion that there are two types of teachers, those who simply teach and those like Ms. Bruckner who change lives." And lastly, quote, "After learning of our daughter's diagnosis, we as parents were terrified. When our daughter started this new and somewhat controversial medication, Ms. Bruckner promised that she would call us every day. She kept her promise. As a parent yourself, Mr. Hendrickson, I am sure you understand that when you send your kids to school, you cross your fingers and hope for the best. In Ms. Bruckner, we have found the very best. She quite simply makes everything better. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly how the world becomes a better place. Maybe, just maybe, Ms. Jen Bruckner redefines and expands the definition of teacher to that of healer by helping the world hear the voices of children, or as Armstrong knows, true genius. Jen, it's with great joy that I offer my congratulations to you as you join this esteemed group of professionals known as our Teachers of the Year. Congratulations.
It is my distinguished pleasure tonight to introduce the Avid Early Learning Center Teacher of the Year, Ms. Boriana Karajova. When I found out that Ms. Karajova won this award, I was thrilled because I couldn't think of anybody more deserving. And I spent a lot of time thinking about what makes her so special. Not about a lot of things, but it really comes down to one word, and it's the word why. Because you see, good teachers, they focus on what students need to know, and they focus on how students are to do things. But truly great teachers focus on why they're doing those things. And you know, over the course of the year, I've had the opportunity to visit Ms. Karajova's room on numerous occasions. And it's wonderful to see her lessons often don't even start with discussion of music. They talk about the cultural journey the students are going on. They're going to learn music from different parts of the world, about different cultures. And students, they gained appreciation not just for the composition, but also for the significance of that piece. So students in Ms. K's class, they often come in and they go through their activities, and she's very engaging. She has students dancing and singing and playing instruments and music. And when they leave with yes, a new song, and yes, they've learned about rhythm and they've learned about notation, but more importantly, they've learned about the significance of that piece and the fact that music brings out emotion in us and connects us and ties us together. A few months back, we had our winter concerts, and if you haven't had the opportunity to see one of Ms. K's concerts, you got to come down and see some. As a matter of fact, you're all invited. We have some lined up starting tomorrow. You're all welcome to come down. She's the epitome of passion when she's up there. She's singing with the kids, she's rocking out with them, and the kids feel that, and they know that. And the kids are proud, they're excited. She literally pulls the performance out of the kids. And you know, just as a testament to the wonderful things she does, 6 performances. After each performance, there were literally dozens of parents lined up to tell her, one, to congratulate her on a wonderful job, but more importantly, to thank her for making a difference in their children's lives and for teaching them to appreciate music. So I couldn't think of a more deserving donor. Congratulations, and thank you for the teaching.
My name is Mark Ettery. I'm principal of Asher Holmes Elementary School, and it is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce our Teacher of the Year from Asher Holmes Elementary School, Mrs. Dawn Esposito. Mrs. Esposito was selected overwhelmingly by our staff for Teacher of the Year, and I'm in complete agreement that this is a wonderful and well-deserved honor. One word that epitomizes Mrs. Esposito is respect, and that's the respect that she extends to her students, the respect that she has earned from her peers, and she just has an aura of respect about her, and that's something that's greatly valued in our school community. Part of that respect manifests itself in what I think is very, very special about Mrs. Esposito, in that she's a 5th grade teacher, and 5th graders are trying to find their way. They're at the end of elementary school, getting ready to venture into middle school, and there's a lot of individuality that comes out as students are preparing for that middle school experience. And what I've found consistently over the time that I've known Mrs. Esposito is that she embraces that individuality, she embraces that diversity, and she knows that it's important for her kids to know that they are loved and they are taken care of and they are accepted. And that's the atmosphere that exists in her classroom. Your kids absolutely loved you. It was kind of funny when the teachers were at the Teacher of the Year ceremony that we had late last week. I went into the classroom to see how the kids were doing, just to say hello, and they were all very, very happy that district-wide we were celebrating Mrs. Esposito's birthday at the board office. So I said, well, I'm glad you're happy for her, but that's not exactly why she's there. So that was pretty cute. Dawn is patient, she's kind, she's masterful at small group and differentiated instruction, and she truly strikes a wonderful balance between academic rigor and kindness and caring. And that's what a true masterful teacher does, and she does it so well. So it's my honor to be Dawn's principal. Dawn, this could not be more deserving for anyone else, and I congratulate you. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is John Pacifico, and I'm honored to stand before you and recognize Memorial Middle School's Teacher of the Year, Jennifer Bruce. Ms. Bruce is one of those teachers that don't come around very often. She's only in her 6th year of teaching, but it wasn't hard to tell pretty early on that she was going to be something special. To find out why she's a great teacher, one only needs to look at who she is as a person and her positive energy that lifts those around her. As a teacher, Ms. Bruzy has the ability to conceptualize math for her students in a way that they are able to absorb and understand it. Her strongest attribute as a teacher is her ability to motivate her students to try and give effort. From students who are struggling to the highest level learners, Ms. Bruzy has the ability to motivate students who sometimes have difficulty motivating themselves, and that is the key to her success as a teacher. It is not uncommon to see a classroom full of students in Ms. Bruzy's room willingly giving up their time to receive extra math instruction during their lunch period. Ms. Bruzy was not only awarded Teacher of the Year by her colleagues, she has been rated as a highly effective teacher for the past 2 years by district administrators. She also received one of only a few perfect SGP scores in the district. And for those that don't know what an SGP score is, it's the way the state measures a teacher's ability to prepare students for standardized tests. In addition to all that, Ms. Bruzy is one of the most, if not the most, popular teacher with our students. Ms. Bruzy is also a leader in our school community. Last year, when we were in a pinch and we needed a yearbook advisor, it was Ms. Bruzy and a colleague who stepped up to do the job, even though she already coaches our girls' basketball team and softball team. If I've made her sound too good to be true, it's because she absolutely is. So on behalf of Mrs. Tardio, Ms. Labuza, and the entire Memorial School community, I'd like to congratulate Jen Bruzy on being our Teacher of the Year.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Pat Lucky, principal of the middle school, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Nancy Escher-Schultz. Wanting to share as much as I can with you so that you get to know our school psychologist, Dr. A, I started to jot down some phrases that came to mind for me. Colleague, mentor, support system for many, resource for staff, students, and the entire community. Lifelong learner, voracious reader, scrapbooker, and a professional who believes that it is important to provide opportunities for children that will teach skills and lessons that they will hold for life. And then I started to think about all the programs and initiatives that have been created by Dr. A, or to which she is a member or facilitator. The MMS School Safety Team, the MMS Crisis Team, the Countywide Crisis Team, our peer-to-peer student leadership program facilitator, Hot Club advisor, Hawks Student Club founder and sponsor, Marlboro Alliance member, 504 coordinator, HIV anti-bullying school coordinator, and I could go on. Nancy has been a valued and trusted employee of the Marlboro District for 21 years. While I'm proud to say that she has a home at Middle, she is known throughout the district, the Marlboro community, and our state. Every day is a new challenge for Nancy. You may have attended a PTO meeting where she was the guest presenter and spoke about social media and making good choices. In our school, she coordinates the annual and popular peer-to-peer Parents' Night program in May. This year, there were over 100 participants. Or she may be organizing programs for our own middle school students as the Hot Bear or classroom outreaches. Nancy may be spotted at the elementary schools this time of year, ensuring that our 5th grade students with 504 plans are well prepared for the transition to middle school. She may also be spotted wearing a student-designed hot shirt as she again visits the elementary schools with her Hot Club students who make anti-tobacco presentations to the 5th graders. As our school psychologist assisting all middle school students who are facing difficult events or circumstances, Nancy is second to none. We are so fortunate to have a staff member of Nancy's caliber, experience, patience, and determination in our school community. To Dr. A, on behalf of the many students and families who have sought your support and help, and immediately knew that you were listening and would do whatever was needed to address the issue, we all thank you. I just want to say that our program is very special here in Marlboro, so to our board and administration, thank you for your insight 21 years ago to recognize that we needed our own Dr. A. Thank you.
I want to thank all the principals who really give us a chance, let the community and the board members that didn't have a chance to be here last Friday, get to know our teachers of the year and how really special they are and what an amazing difference they make in the lives that they touch every day and the many students each one of their classrooms. So I ask the rest of the board members, everybody here one more time to join me in congratulating all of our teachers of the year here at Marlboro.
Congratulations again. You really do make a lot of difference in the lives of our children. Thank you for all you do. Next up, we're going to have a presentation by Davina, and we're going to talk about virtual museums. So Principal Green, Jill, take it away. Mrs. Green, do you want us to be over there? Or we over there? You got it. Thank you.
Young's 4th grade gifted and talented class were tasked with completing a research project on monumental places around the world. The students were given a broad range of choices, which included researching one of the 7 wonders of the world or a modern world wonder. With this information, the students utilized technology to create a virtual museum that they're going to share with our board members. But I'd like to introduce Mrs. Young, their teacher, who could share a little more information about their project.
I see how excited you guys are to come up here. Excellent. Good evening, President Lansky, Dr. Hibbs, members of the Board of Education. This is our 4th grade REACH class here at Tofino. For the most part, they've been traveling the globe all year in search of some of the greatest world enigmas on the planet. And pretty much the ancient civilizations that pay homage to them. So through extensive research and a lot of time on the Google platform, learning Google Slides, they became museum curators and historians and social scientists, and they figured out how to implement the science of teaching along with the art, and they created these beautiful visual museums on display as part of our young Metropolitan Museum of the 7 World Wonders. So it was a culminating project to the unit on monsters, mysteries, and more in the Gifted and Talented curriculum. And they are elated to share their virtual museums with you this evening. So I'm going to have the students come up to each of you on the board and walk you through their wing of the virtual museum. And I'd like to present maybe just one template for those of you in the audience who are curious to see their final products. So go ahead, guys. You guys know where you're going up to. Yeah, you can give them the tickets. Thank you.
Some of our slides include sculptures, maps, tools, monuments, games, and original art as artifacts extracted from the wonder. We linked each slide so that they coincide with what information we wanted to display when people navigate through. The good news is we are no longer under construction and are ready to open our doors for you tonight.
Go ahead, guys, take it away. all very fancy, and they have different groups that were aligned to the outline that they had to follow on their research project. One of the groups that they have is the historical significance of the World Wonder and how it impacted civilization, and whether or not it's still important for people to study moving forward. So, for instance, one of my students chose Chichen Itza, the Mayan ruins in Mexico, and they linked pictures to their research based on that slide. Every arrow is linked back to the lobby where you can navigate through. One of my favorite rooms is the room about them. It's the curator's office, and they were able to discuss who they are outside of their research. They gave a little background about their interests, their hobbies, books that they like to read. Some of that included how long they were on these research excursions, and it's really cute to see their creativity. Another favorite slide was the artifact room. They made sure to find ancient artifacts that were representative of whatever ancient world wonder that they were studying. So in this case, we had a nice discussion. A lot of them linked video slides here. And we really had a great time with it. They talked about different people and how they were influential to building the monument and the manual labor that went into it and the wealth involved in these ancient world wonders and the ambiguity of it all, the history of it all. So I commend them very much. And as you can see, the tourists are really enjoying their visit. So that's some of their presentations say open 24 hours, but I'm hoping that they'll let the show go on today. Thank you guys for all of your hard work.
That's pretty amazing. I got to go to the Great Pyramid and to Machu Picchu. All 10.
I went to the Coliseum. It was incredible. Let's give DeFino another hand. At this time, I would introduce Mr. Medry again, Mrs. Kay, to talk about some great things happening at Asher.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hibbs, members of the board. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be up here again. So, Mrs. Weinschenk is one of our phenomenal third grade teachers. Mrs. Weinschenk's class is here this evening, and they've been working very, very hard on a presentation where they did the research and they learned a whole lot about the planets, and then they did some really wonderful things to be able to present what it is that they know. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Mrs. Weinschenk. I'm going to ask Mrs. Weinschenk to come up. Okay, Mrs. Weinschenk is going to take one moment just to set up.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting us to be here tonight. Our class spent a lot of time learning about the planets in our solar system, and they combined what they learned with everything that we have that is Google here in Marlborough to create an out-of-this-world presentation that we hope you enjoy.
We learned about and researched the planets. go on an expedition to Saturn. Experience Saturn's extraordinary rings.
Ride on Saturn's 7 beautiful rings.
Let Saturn's amazing winds blow your mind away.
Let's give Asher another hand.
On behalf of the Board of Education, I want to thank all the students and their teachers for their very, very hard work. We saw two amazing presentations tonight, really fit to go together with Teachers of the Year. Great combination. On behalf of the Board of Education, again, I want to congratulate everybody who performed tonight. We're going to take like a quick 10-minute break so we can get the young ones home, get ready for school tomorrow. And I'll take a motion to adjourn for 10 minutes, seconded by Victoria. We'll go to Freeman. Okay, we adjourn for 10 minutes. Okay, we're back in session. Dr. Hibbs.
Hi, everybody. Even though we're not at 1980 for the administrative building, I just wanted to draw attention. Ms. West did such an incredible job of decorating the hallways. It's full of Japanese lanterns, geometric name art tiles, pop art, inspired candy wrappers. There's a Reese's there that's probably not going to make its way back to Memorial until we head into my office. I also want to proudly announce that on Friday and Saturday, May 1st and 2nd, the Royal Airs, the Griffin Orchestra, Jazz Bands, and Sovereign Swing of Marlboro Memorial performed at the Music in the Parks Festival in Hershey, Pennsylvania. The Royal Airs, under the direction of Ms. Laura Winslow, earned a rating of excellent and finished in 2nd place among the middle school mixed choirs. The Monarch Jazz Orchestra, under the direction of Mr. Matthew Goley, earned a rating of excellent and finished in 2nd place among the junior high jazz bands. And the Griffin Orchestra, under the direction of Mrs. Katie Gussman, earned a rating of superior with a score of 95 out of 100 and finished in 1st place. So much to be proud of, in Hershey. So much. We also we have an e-cyber mission. I'm not going to read all of this, but essentially it's one of several science, technology, engineering, and mathematics STEM initiatives offered by the Army Educational Outreach Program, AOEP. The U.S. Army is committed to answering the nation's need for increased national STEM literacy and expanding STEM education opportunities across the country to open doors to new career paths to America's students. We had 4 Marlboro Middle School students, Nikhil Chakraborty, Shayas Selvajaj, Louis Lee, and I missed one, and Justin Shen. They submitted a project entitled Big Fuel, and they won a $1,000 savings bond, so a lot also to be proud of there. We had the National DuPont Science Essay. Aditya Balachandran, grade 6, was recognized with distinction of honorable mention in the DuPont Science Essay Contest. We had National History Day competition that occurred on May 3rd, and we had students from Marlboro Memorial and Middle that participated. We had the Charles Lafitte Foundation Annual Spring Essay Contest. We have Amisha Singh, a 6th grade student of Ms. Lauren DiDonato of Marlboro Memorial, wrote the winning essay in her age group for the contest, and that focuses on individuals. It's a foundation, it's an organization that provides grants and other opportunities to individuals focusing on the 4 main areas of education, children's advocacy, medical research, and the arts. So we have a lot to be proud of that I didn't want to skip.
I want to congratulate all the students. Also like to sit down and thank Tara Gostovich, DMD, who's the district's Emerald Level sponsor for the 2014-2015 school year, and we thank her for her sponsorship. Mrs. Luke, the school budget driver.
As we do every month, we run the abstracts on our drivers and our buildings and maintenance personnel, and all their abstracts have come back with privileges and good standing.
Thank you. Very good. Communication.
I'm going to see if any communication people want to report out on public comment.
Okay. Superintendent's report, harassment, intimidation, bullying, hit report, April 23rd, May 20th, 2015, 1 incident. Everybody received a copy? Questions? I'll announce the following meeting dates. We have Tuesday, June 2nd, workshop at Marlboro Memorial Middle School. That's also an award ceremony. Tuesday, June 9th, workshop at Marlboro Middle School. That's our award ceremony. And Tuesday, June 23rd, our regular meeting at the regular Board building. The current enrollment figures as of April, end of April, 5,262 students, 78 less than the same time last year. Dara, would you mind reading the minutes, please?
Approval of minute resolution. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meeting be approved as submitted. April 21st, 2015, special and workshop and executive. April 28th, 2015, special, regular, executive. May 5th, 2015, special and executive. I so moved.
Thank you, Dara. Second by Debbie. Any discussion on the minutes? Seeing none, Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes on April 21st, April 28th. No on May, I'm sorry, I abstain on May 5th. I wasn't present.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes, April 21st, abstain for April 28th and May 5th.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes to all.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mrs. Ennis?
Yes.
And Mr. Lulinski?
Yes. Everybody received a copy of the Secretary Business Administrator's report, including the payroll certification and investment report. Anybody have any questions or comments on this? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to the first public session. Open to any item. I'm going to ask the public that they just limit their each individual presentation to 5 minutes each. Mrs. Abu will be the timekeeper, as is customary. And hold up, you have the cards with you?
I got my cards.
All right, so this time, you have a clipboard, so we'll start with the clipboard. You don't have to be in the clipboard, we can use that.
Laura Lavery.
That's the name and address.
Laura Lavery, 88 Canada Drive. Excuse me. As always, thank you to the board members who volunteer your time for the students and the taxpayers of this town. And even though I believe they've left, congratulations to all the teachers who were recognized with the title of Teacher of the Year. And when you look through the agenda and you see whether it's Mrs. Gussman's group or Mrs. Hastings' group, they're all Teachers of the Year in this school district. So I'm not here tonight to speak about the Chromebooks, although for the record, I am against them going home with the kids in middle school. I'm also not here to talk about testing, although I think the number of tests and quizzes are excessive. I am here, however, tonight to speak about the new criteria for placement. Algebra 1 is the prerequisite course for application to some of the freehold regional high school district schools, specifically business administration, science and engineering, and the medical science learning centers. A middle school student in Marlborough won't take Algebra 1 unless he or she is in the high math classes. This same middle school student won't get into those high math classes unless he or she is in high math in 4th and 5th grade. This isn't new. What is new is that our school district has changed the placement criteria to include the COGAT. The COGAT should be used as a composite score for gifted and talented placement. It is not an achievement test, therefore should not be used for curriculum placement. Even Dr. David Lohman, the author of the COGAT, states this opinion in his own studies. Why are we now using the COGAT in a way it was never intentioned? Our district already had higher criteria for C-level placement than the rest of the freehold high school feeder schools. So why again increase the criteria when it will only put our kids at a greater disadvantage competing with the other schools? This new criteria is placing the Marlborough school children at a distinct disadvantage for acceptance into the specialty high schools. All the schools feeding into the freehold regional district should be on the same playing field. Not all parents of 3rd graders are looking down the road at high schools. I am not aware what, if any, research was conducted by this administration to see how many of our current honors and C-level students in middle school would have been eliminated under these new rules. As Board of Education members, please be aware that I believe these changes that are being made by this administration are negatively affecting our 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders' chances to apply for a specialty high school when the time comes. If you don't agree with the COGAT being used as a criteria for placement, please rectify this now before it is too late for some of our students. And if you do agree with these changes, please work with the Freehold Regional School Board so that they lift the Algebra 1 requirement. Thank you for your time. I will be leaving before you answer because there's a Ranger game on tonight. So thank you very much for your time.
Carol Lombardi. Carol Lombardi, 480
Friday of a holiday weekend. It states the reasons why this is a bad idea, and I will leave a copy that I printed out before I came tonight for the public record. While I think the opportunity of one child to one Chromebook in the classroom, it is a great idea. It works in school. And these Chromebooks remained in school for this entire past year, and they should remain in school for all years going forward. Unless you're a family that does not own multiple devices for multiple children to do homework, there are no advantages to the children to bring these Chromebooks home. And it has not been explained how this will benefit each student. Every student can access all Chromebook work on their home devices. You eliminate the need to bring their Chromebook home. You can even access Chrome in the library. Chromebooks do not store or retain any information you can't get on your home device. It should be optional, not mandatory, if your children and their parents choose to take the Chromebooks home, and they should bear all the ramifications of maintaining that Chromebook. There are many disadvantages. Currently, there's about 2,000 students in both middle schools. That is a lot of wear and tear. Breaking, water damage, getting lost, kids forgetting to bring it in, not being charged and possibly stolen. Marlboro Middle students cannot bring books to lunchroom. So that means they're not bringing those Chromebooks to the lunchroom either. Will they even fit in the lockers to be stored during lunch along with all their other binders, book bags, and jacket? Dr. Harris, in the minutes of September 9th, 2014, you stated not sending the devices home will increase their lifespan. So why now? Why will that change and decrease their lifespan? It was listed in last week's news transcript that this district has spent about $1.5 million to provide students and staff members with Chromebook computers and tablets. Don't you think they're going to last a little bit longer if they stay in the classrooms and are not brought home every day? So according to your agenda for tonight, you've now budgeted $45,000 for these Chromebook carrying bags, an expense that's not necessary. I don't buy things I don't need. I'm the parent, and I ultimately should be the one making the decision for my family if this Chromebook comes home with my kids. I don't want to pay for it, or feel the need to have it in my house. So you just spent $1.5 million on all these devices. How are you going to budget for the new and repaired devices in the future? Do you have a maintenance plan? In the August 19, 2014 meeting minutes, you stated that each tablet costs $261. Will it be the parent's responsibility to buy a new Chromebook at $261 if it's damaged beyond the set repair times? Dr. Hibbs, in that same meeting, in anticipation of the children taking the Chromebooks home last August or September, you pointed out that this year's numbers of Chromebooks needing repair may be different than in the past. The only positive accuracy of how well the system worked this year is in place right now. 100% of your middle school body took advantage of the Chromebooks remaining in the classroom on their charging cards. The Chromebooks were safe and they were ready to use. There are current plans in place. If you take another accurate survey, then your data may be different this year. The status quo is working. Why are you seeking to change it? This was your test year, and it worked smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Wexler.
Hi, Jen Wexler, 46 Damascus Drive. I just want to say that I support what the people speaking before me also say. I'm not for taking Chromebooks home, and I am very confused about testing being used for replacement. What I do want to talk about tonight is the number of assessments that are currently being doled out to our children. By taking a survey, we've gathered that Marlboro Elementary Grade 1, there are 94 assessments as of the middle of last week. Dugan Grade 2, 138 to 145 assessments to date. Asher Holmes Grade 2, 105 assessments to date. Dugan Grade 3, 129 assessments to date. Dugan Grade 4, 94 assessments to date. Mar-El Grade 4, 90 assessments to date. Mar-El Grade 5, 97 assessments to date. Dugan Grade 5, 123 to 139 assessments to date. Marlboro Middle School Grade 6, 155 assessments to date. And by to date, I mean the middle of last week, let me clarify. Marlboro Middle, Grade 7, 133. Marlboro Memorial Middle, Grade 7, 126 to 150. And Marlboro Middle School, Grade 8, 165 year, second graders have 105 to 145, depending on the school. My child has 140. The issue of 105 to 145 varying across schools is something in and of itself. However, I'd just like to take a look at the number of 145. If you take 145 and divide it by 9, because we're not done with school yet, that's 16.11 assessments for a 9-month period. That's an increase of 4 tests per month. At this rate, by the end of the year, we could have 162 assessments. This excludes PARC, this excludes standardized testing. To date, again, we have some students that have had 19 more assessments, depending on which school they're in, and the year is not over. Duke in grade 3 this year has had 129 assessments. Took 129 and divided that by 8 months because it's not the end of the year, and we also had PARC. It's still 16 assessments per month. No one really tests during PARC, and that's just kind of a courtesy. At this rate, we're looking at 143 tests before the year ends. Last year, Duke did 126 assessments. For the entire year, remember the year is not over. We're already ahead of last year's total. Again, please remember that this year we've missed almost an entire month of instructional time for PARC between testing and makeups. Beginning of the year assessments are not accounted for in this number, and standardized tests are not accounted for. As an aside, according to the website, 17.1% of classroom time is dedicated to district assessments for grade 2, and 18.2% of classroom time is dedicated to district assessments in grade 3. That's almost 20% of instructional time being lost on district assessments. PARC's about a month of testing for grade 3, so that's another 5 to 10% roughly of instructional time being lost on testing alone, notwithstanding the test prep occurring. Your website refers to section 6A:8-2, number 3, letter I, quote, a pacing guide, as per the state, but not necessarily a unit guide, so there's nothing from the state saying how we must be handling their imperatives. To continue later on page 19 of the same document, section 3, it refers to benchmark assessments, but not to specific types, frequency, etc. So it seems like we do have some control as a district to fix or modify this issue, if I'm interpreting it correctly, and I'm not saying that I am. This is just based on what the district has put out. So there's still no definitive weight at this time as to the weight of common assessments overall. If the difference in quantity of assessments varies from school to school, there are some students at a disadvantage from a number of stands. If I have 20 tests and Mary has 10, and that common assessment is counted as a test, it's going to hurt Mary much more than it's going to hurt me if she doesn't do well. So ultimately, the difference in the number of assessments by school will impact the effect of these common assessments and common performance tasks. And that will affect some placement. So at this point, as parents, we know we have a lot of public support. I mean, we're out, we go to Wegmans, we see people, and everyone is all up in arms about everything, but clearly we don't have a lot of bodies in this room. And I feel sometimes like it's the bodies in the room that are demonstrating that this is not okay. So if you could advise another way that we can convince you that there are a lot of people that are unhappy, I would be happy to work with you in any way to just communicate the needs of the community in a better way than this. I don't know why we can't get people to come out, but we can't. And congratulations to Ms. Brockman, because she's wonderful. Thank you.
Bonnie Gabison.
Bonnie Gabison, to Harvest Court. Hello, everybody. I always speak on behalf, but I want to thank everybody who spoke, because every single one of them had such important stuff to say that needs to be heard. And I've just been reflecting on the year. I think it's a good time for reflection on the year we've been through, and the challenges that we've had over the year, and the direction things are going, and to really look at what issues are important to people. I want to thank Jen for collecting all that data. It's staggering. When I look and see that, and she counted tests and quizzes, not standardized tests, not anything else, just tests and quizzes as they are in the portal. When you see that a second grader, an 8-year-old child, and anyone who has an 8-year-old child and knows an 8-year-old child taking 150 tests a year is got to be very difficult for a child. When you think of the amount of testing time it's taken away, if you average, let's say a half hour for each of those tests, 150 tests and quizzes, ballpark figure, that's 75 hours of teaching time. And you ask where parent-teacher conferences were taken away because to put more teaching time back into the calendar, into the schedule. There it is. Cut down, testing is not teaching. Scale back on the tests, and it needs to be consistent across the district. It needs to be in a way that's going to be helpful. The data is going to be helpful without being excessive, and it needs to follow a schedule where the youngest children, second graders, third graders, that's still early childhood. They should be enjoying school, loving reading, doing projects, and a million other ways to assess them than 150 tests a year. And they need to get those basics and fall in love with learning at those early grades, and then bring your testing up in a fashion that coincides with developmentally appropriate practices. But to have second graders taking 150 tests, maybe by middle school, that it would be on a graduated, number. But I think this is the time to think ahead for next year. The amount of testing has to decrease. I think it should come in the form of common assessments. Maybe give them every, not as often, or just to look at it and scale it back. That is something that's important to a lot of parents. Again, whether or not you see them here, these are the things, if we can bring what people are concerned about to you, and you look at it and see how you're going to address it, and be open with us on how it is being addressed, and then they are being addressed. So the CAs, the CPTs, how often, how much, parent-teacher conferences, parents want them back the way they used to be, the half day, the night time, however, give them back some teaching time away from this testing, and then maybe we can have parent-teacher conferences. And just that I want to encourage parents to keep coming out and speaking about the things that they see going on in their kids' education. I'm sure I rambled, I apologize, but there it is.
Jen LeBeau.
Hi, Jen LeBeau, congratulations to all the teachers of the year. Very quick, I had a question about zoning, because I heard some of the schools were being rezoned to Colts Neck High, but then I realized everybody probably can answer that question since you're K through 8. So I just didn't know about that. But my other thing was just a comment on testing. I just wanted to give a little anecdote to the board. My daughter had a quiz last week in a certain subject, and then the next day we had the chapter test on that same subject, and then the day after that we had the common assessment on that subject, and then the day after that we had the CPT on that same subject. So it was like a 4-day in a row on the same subject. So now we tested 4 times and assessed on the same content. So I just thought that was a little excessive, especially since we didn't get it back to review for the next test. How do you prepare for a chapter test without the quiz grade? How do you prepare for the common assessment without the chapter test back? How do you prepare for the CPT without the common assessment? So that's all I wanted to say.
Anybody else in public wish to address the board on any item? Seeing none, sir?
We don't usually do this, but I want to ask you a clarifying question. Bonnie, you mentioned that the numbers that we're talking about included quizzes and tests, right? Okay. Let me start out by saying that we are already underway cutting down on common assessments for next year. Okay. We are absolutely, we understand that certain things need to be streamlined. So I want you to understand that I hear you and we're working on it. Can I give it to you this moment? No, I can't. It's not, the final look is not ready to roll out, but it will be disseminated to the entire community in a very transparent way. Okay? So I'm going to start with the last part and I'll work my way backwards. If you take 200, and I know that 200 sounds excessive, 200 tests. It's 200 grades that you're representing in a child's grade book. So if we basically take the 5 major subjects, so let's just take, you have written expression, you have reading, you have mathematics, science, and social studies. And you say that in a marking period, there are 8 assessments in there. 8 times 5 is 40. 40 times the 4 marking periods is going to give you approximately, I used 200, about 160. Which seemed to be, I couldn't write them as fast as you went, but it seemed to be 160 was somewhere in the middle-ish. What that means is that when you look at a child for an entire marking period, there are 8 grades. There are 8 assessments. And look, I'm not telling you how to feel at all. And I'm not going to tell you that a child doesn't take an assessment some days in a row. I won't say that. What I'll say is that my daughter came home this year with 10 grades in her grade book, 2 of which were tests. Tests were 60% of the entire average. On one test, she had a 90. On the second test, she had a 62. We studied for it. She didn't do well. Sophia's grade went catastrophically down. As an educator, I firmly believe that 8 grades in a grade book, whether it's tests, quizzes, however you want to label it, primary, secondary assessments, that is enough. That is not enough to go into the window of a child from my point of view. So when we use numbers and we say things like there were 200 tests, I'm not telling you how to feel, it's just not accurate by any means. Were there assessments? Sure. And I'm confused at any point in time in education when there weren't assessments. And to not assess, would not be prudent or guide the instructional program.
I just want to clarify one thing. Can't go back.
It's the urgency that's putting on our children.
You can speak in the second public session.
That's all it is. Whatever it counts for, it doesn't matter. I don't care.
Ma'am, you can't.
Is it tests or assessment, same thing?
You can't go back and forth, I'm sorry. You can talk in the second public
How do you
session.
define it? What's the difference? It's a grade, it's anything graded. A test, but a test or an assessment.
I think what we're talking about, are the grades that exist in a grade book. So from my educator's point of view, when you look at a grade book and see 5 assessments and 6 assessments, I have to just be honest. And I'm not saying that some children aren't overwhelmed by having 3 and 4 things in a row, but over the course of the entire marking period, 6, 7, and 8 grades is not an appropriate measure of a child. So, but I want to also say that we are 100% reflecting on our common assessments, on our CPTs. I will 100% run the numbers out of Genesis. So, Jen, that work is fantastic. I will 100% pull it out. I'll have Adam do it tomorrow, and we'll start looking at where we are, and we'll make good reflective decisions going forward. You have my word that we will do that, 100%. Bonnie talked about the importance of reflection. I agree. I 100% agree. I'm sure that you were very happy to see, as I was, that Park is going to mesh the EOY and the PBA. I think that's a great idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. I'm very happy that they are doing that and also cutting down on testing time. Going backwards, Carol talked about she does not want the Chromebooks to go home. You know what? I don't recall my words from September, and I couldn't remember the last one. The date, I think it was October. One was about it would decrease the lifespan, and one was about I didn't know the number of Chromebooks, and we have to be reflective and look at that. You're right now, on probably both counts. And then going back to Laura Lavery, she spoke about placement and using the COGAT. I'm going to hand this to Michael. We've done a deep dive on our assessment and assessment procedures and our protocols. Now let him take it.
Good evening, everybody. With respect to the use
COGAT verbal battery and quantitative battery. That essentially is one criterion that took the place of the verbal battery and quantitative battery for the CTP4, the Comprehensive Testing Program 4. So for a good 10, 12 years prior to the COGAT coming into play here, and I should add a parenthetical, the COGAT has been used for at least that amount of time for gifted and talented here in the district in grades 1 and 2. But essentially, which was explained probably back in 2013 when the new placement criteria was presented to the Board of Education, that there was a hole that existed in identifying our gifted students in the district. In order to identify gifted students in the district, one criterion being the quantitative battery and verbal battery, being that the CTP4 went away for various reasons. One of the major reasons was that it was not aligned to our new standards. It required teachers to stop instruction with the new standards, the Common Core State Standards. And sometime in April, when the assessment was administered, teachers would have to stop instruction and teach skills that students would see on the CTP4. After seeing at least 1 or 2 years of that, we realized that wasn't a good decision. So we needed a replacement. The replacement, in our opinion, the best replacement for that was to replace an apple with an apple. And that was the COGAT verbal and quantitative batteries. It's used for identifying, as I said, our gifted students. C-level would be technically students in reading and or math who are academically 1 year in advance of their chronological year. So a grade 4 student is really in grade 5 level work. It also is used for our honors programs at the middle schools, and also continues to be used in our Pep Reach program, gifted math, and enrichment reading, which are also gifted programs at the elementary level. So I guess it's not new criteria to begin with, and secondly, the way it's used is identical to the way it's been used here in the district for over a decade, and it's been used well. I know one member had mentioned, I believe it was Mrs. Lavery, speaking to an analysis of the data, and did administration take a look at students who were sitting in those C-level classes under the old CTP4, CTP4 criterion in that case, verbal or quantitative, versus looking at the quantitative and verbal battery for the COGAT. We absolutely did. We are not shutting students out of C-level. In fact, this year in particular, we've seen a growth over the last 3 years in students' acceptance rate into the Freehold Regional District specialized programs. And I know you might say, well, that's okay, but those students are under the old program. Knowing that we're not shutting current students out, we should continue to realize those successes as the top sending district to the Freehold Regional in the number of students admitted to those programs, including the 4, which require Algebra 1 as a prerequisite, essentially for our 8th grade students.
And what I'll say is this: if anybody has a specific question on placement, your first stop is to go to a supervisor and then to Mr. Malone, and we will always do a deep dive on every child, and that's what we do every time. Michael refers to this as placement season because there's numerous phone calls where parents strongly advocate for their children, and that's fantastic. There's nothing more important that we can do for our kids. So the takeaway really is, because I hear a lot of things, one of which is you're shutting the door on our children. One of the things that comes back to me is that we're shutting the door on children getting into C-level. Our C-level numbers have not essentially changed. I also hear that the COGAT is not a fair representation education, and 100% replace the CTP4 for the exact same reasons. So when it comes down to it, we have multiple criteria, and we always do deep dives on our children to ensure that we're not missing. Moreover, we also have the ability of children being able to move on a yearly basis in levels. We also grandfather children in once they've qualified, and that's not to say that there's not an exit for a child, but there has to be a very valid reason why there's an exit with great communication to parents. So the long and short is our numbers to the regional are not dropping. We have a tremendous number of acceptances to the Oak schools as well, top tier schools. But we will continue to monitor this every year, several times a year, to make sure that we're doing what's best for kids. Michael, anything else you want to add?
No, I think you covered it.
I missed one from Bonnie, and it was parent-teacher conferences. Bon, that was negotiated between the board and the MTEA. So unilaterally, even if the board collectively decided, and I'm going to speak for you here, if that's okay, they can't just add days to the calendar. Teachers have a specific number of days that they have to work, so if you wanted to add one in, it would not be okay. That's not saying that our teachers don't work hard and don't do some amazing things for our kids. It's just a negotiable item. Just to answer your question, it's not simple. It's just saying, hey, we're going to have another day.
I just wanted to add for the Chromebook questions. I want you to understand that this is something, a conversation started years ago under Dr. Abbott and Karen Condon reign here at the board, where we were working towards a goal of acquiring a take-home item, deciding what that take-home item was ultimately going to be, the Apple platform, the Google platform. We got to the point where we got them in the buildings. There is a greater plan, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. We utilize them a certain way now. When they go home, they'll be utilized differently. And to the extent that there could be district apps, am I correct? District apps that will be on our devices, controlled through district lockdown procedures, and the way that we want our students to use it. This hasn't been presented in full to the board yet. We're still waiting for the final presentation back from administration on how this would look, how it would go out, and how it would look like in an educational platform. So that part still comes to the board from administration. And exactly how it would look, how the insurance would look, how it would look at the break one. We're going to be very transparent and reflective, as Dr. Hibbs had said, to the community and to the needs of the students as we go through this process. So it didn't come up last month and we just made a decision, this is what we're going to do. It's an ongoing process. We're at the point now we're exploring. We want the board, 2 or 3 years ago, maybe more ago, the goal was to get the books home. And this will, over time, give you less textbooks and less, you'll be carrying a Chromebook on your shoulder and a shoulder pad harness and the cabin. Kind of looks like that, as opposed to maybe the 5 or 6 textbooks that weigh 50 pounds. So are we there yet? No. Are we looking to get there? I think so.
And there's other things that have been brought up. Can we lighten the load of the backpack? Sure, we can absolutely do that.
Boys are never going to carry those, I'm sorry.
Okay. I just want to clarify. I want to get the conversation.
It's a must.
Dr. Hibbs and I have had this conversation only because I picked up my daughter's bag and for God's sakes it's 40 pounds. And she's not a big kid. And I was like, what do you got there, your baseball gear? She said, no, it's my books. My question to Dr. Hibbs is, when is this electronics going to start replacing the books? Listen, I'm into one-to-one. I'm into taking them home. I'm into the technology big time. But one more thing, the book bag right now to me is not appealing. If we can start to lighten the load for our kids, to me it would make a lot more sense. And that was a conversation. Teachers, every teacher wants a 1-inch or 2-inch binder. Oh, for goodness sakes, why do I have to have a binder for every class? Let's start looking at real stuff and that we can change, lighten up the bags, and then it might not be such a big deal for a guy to stuff that in his other bag because he doesn't have 18 books. But my point is, let's look at it from a very practical standpoint. And Dr. Hibbs assured me you will.
You can't go back and forth.
I just want to let you know.
All right, so you can't go back and forth.
We're having this conversation, and I'm being very.
I hear you, but they're already available.
You can't go back and forth. Okay.
I'm sticking to the bags first, although I had a question on something else. We have on the budget to approve the bags tonight. Is there a time? Do they need to be approved tonight before we get a full plan?
I'm sorry, I missed that whole conversation.
You can talk about it anyway till we get into it.
I'll ask that.
Okay.
I wanted to ask Mr. Bowles something, if you don't mind. When we had discussed, and I remember the conversations that we had very well, the COGAT coming in as our newbie type of requirement, we discussed in length that I was concerned about the holes entering, and that's why we have started discussion on elementary schools regarding what high school has to bring, so parents are more aware, and the administration can do great with that. But I still feel that we are in this, I don't know what to call it, temporary zone of lack of statistics regarding are those children that we had 2 years ago, if they were to go by these rules, would they have gotten in? That's what, I think that's what we all need to see, and also, I'll let you go. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. And also, when we were discussing it, you said that the teachers would be able, because I was afraid there aren't parents like me, that, want to know everything, and like the ladies were saying, that they're very vocal, they're checking everything, they're checking their statistics. There are parents at home that either, can't do it, or don't know they can, or, they're not aware of it. I was under the impression that the teachers would also be the ones that can contact you or advocate for their child to see if, we don't want to lose that 1 kid, 2 kids, maybe 5 kids, I don't know. But I said it to you 3 years ago, I'm afraid of the hole. And I guess I'm afraid of the hole.
You don't take any teacher recommendations into account?
So,
Sorry to ask, maybe it's teacher
really
recommendation.
what we're talking about is one grade to the next, and it's grade 3 to 4. That's really all we're talking about.
Well, they could get lost in grade 5 as well.
Well, so our philosophy changed when you approved the new placement criteria, which brought in the COGAT. The old philosophy was you have to qualify each and every year, regardless of your past performance, regardless of in the classroom, on standardized testing, or any of the other multiple measures by which we measure the student year to year. So C-level, honors, gifted and talented, all of those programs required a requalification. In fact, we went as far as to say they were exited out of the programs and had to reapply. So the new philosophy under the new criteria was such that we weren't practicing that anymore. So if you were in C-level, you remained in C-level, notwithstanding the fact that you may have not met the criteria. Let's say you were in C-level in grade 4, moving from grade 4 to grade 5, you didn't meet the criteria per se for a student not currently in the program who had to meet that criteria, you're grandfathered in, and that has not changed since we changed philosophy. So we're really only talking about grade 3 to 4. As Dr. Hibbs did say, I should mention, there is an exit procedure. It's not once you make it to C-level, you're locked there, and you can put your feet up and relax. We do have an exit procedure, and part of that exit procedure is teacher input. Teacher input required teacher communication with parents. We're actually going as far next year to provide teachers with a template in terms of when they've contacted parents. I personally like to see at least 3 contacts with parents throughout the year. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking a November, maybe a December, January, and then a March would in my head, be an appropriate point of, or times to contact the parent for exiting. That procedure is in place, has been in place for a long time, but we're going to put something in place to help teachers keep track of that. But moving from grade 3 to grade 4, in grade 4 is where we start placing students in C-level. That is a place that we look at, well, we look at every child in every grade level, but we really take a hard look at those numbers, and we look at what the strict criteria is, and then we look at students who make it, students who just miss it, and we do a deeper dive in terms of students who get admitted into that program. We did that last year, and we'll continue to do that. As Dr.
So in that moment, Mr. Malone, what happens if a teacher contacts your office and says, I think that Mary Smith is being disserviced and belongs in X? What do you do?
So Mary's a grade 3 student moving to grade 4. Let's use math as a good example. We take a look at that student's overall picture, and if it is a criterion that is not made or barely misses, we'll take a look and we'll gather more data. We might go back to the teacher and say, please provide additional work samples. We may even, in the case of math, which it's a little easier in math than ELA. Math, you could, if a child is going from grade 3 math to grade 4 C math, which is essentially grade 5 math, we could administer, with parental permission, an assessment, an end of year grade 4 math assessment for that one child. If that child can demonstrate success on that assessment, why would we hold her back? But if she cannot, or the parent doesn't agree to the additional testing, there's really nothing we can do. Now, we do know that the teacher and the parents know the students much better than we do at the board office. We're looking at numbers, we're trying to look at the whole picture, but when we get input from a teacher, and also from parents, sometimes we take that seriously, we just have to dig a little deeper. And 9 times out of 10, the parents will say, absolutely. If they really feel that their child is capable, they will allow us to test. We have had a few refusals, and at that point, it's disheartening for me because I can't move further if I am not confident that that child will succeed. Philosophically, it is detrimental to a child to place him or her as a trial run in that higher level class and then realize October, November, that the child isn't making it, and we pull them out and bring them back down. Math has great implications for that in terms of it's a different curriculum. They will have missed months of instruction on the level on which they're suited for. So that becomes a real issue in math.
It's important to remember as well, not to make it too soon, or not like Common Core. Common Core turned the standards, which were very, very broad and very narrow, and turned them this way. So in doing that trial run, students aren't guaranteed to see every standard every year. So you're plucking them out of a continuum, you're putting them somewhere else if they did not succeed. But that's not to say that we don't do deep dives on every child. I think absolutely questions you can ask whatever questions you want, we'll be fully transparent. I think the proper thing is to let us get through this placement season, and we'll come back to you with the numbers that existed over the last couple of years, because numbers are not finalized,
right? We're in the midst of that right now.
We're happy to come back to you and the public and disseminate the numbers to show that C-level is not dropping, that our acceptances to the Vokes and to the Freehold Regional Academies, they're not dropping, but we're happy to demonstrate that, but we're still reflective all the time.
When you said that Mary in 4th grade can also be tested, are you speaking of the COGAT that can also be offered on an even year if necessary? Or are you speaking of a different assessment? Just so
we've tossed that idea around, not really there yet. If that is the case, let's say, for example, the COGAT's keeping Mary out, maybe she missed it by 2 points, 3 points, whatever the case might be, and that's the only criterion. In that case, we would, with input from multiple areas, including work samples, if I give Mary an end of year 4th grade assessment and she scores an A on it, how could I keep her back? Regardless of a Kogan score, making it or not making it.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah.
All right, bring us to update on construction on secured medical projects, Cindy.
Mr. Tony Toludo is here. Our construction manager from Epic Management is here to give us an update.
Well, come with good news. We're not 100% done, but we're significantly completed with the schools and the additions and the entrances. Still got a couple loose ends, punch list items, some administrative paperwork, and closeout documents that we're wrapping up. But all the schools have received, not all the schools, have, except for Dugan and Transportation, have received final certificates of occupancy. Transportation, electrical final inspections, the electrical inspector needed to come back and check on a minor thing. So we have it scheduled for either the end of this week or early next week. We're just trying to get that scheduled with the code office. With the holiday, kind of back them up a little bit. So that's the transportation building. The Dugan, we have a temporary certificate of occupancy. The front doors at the entrance lobby, we decided not to replace them at this time to disrupt the entrance. Right now the entrance is fine. Might as well wait till the school year's over, then replace that group of doors. Once those doors are replaced, then the building department will come back and issue the final certificate of occupancy for that school. There's a couple doors that are being replaced. They were sent out not to the satisfaction that we expected as far as the standard. So those doors, the bronze colored doors, and the blue one at Abbott. So that'll be replaced in the next couple weeks also. Probably again after the school year is over. Other than that, I think we're in pretty good shape finally.
Questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Cindy, go to the referendum.
Yes, Dr. Hibbs and myself, we had talked to, Dr. Hibbs had talked to you about needing help in doing public relations for the upcoming referendum for the addition at the Early Learning Center. And we reached out to one company, and the board has asked us to do a comparison. So tonight you have two presenters here to give you a very short presentation on their services for public relations. So the first firm is Interactive Dialogue, George Sendell.
We are here to talk about referendum communications, but I hope also to talk about what I call community organization, something that is both sort of top-down and grassroots as a swelling up. There's an old maxim that says, all politics are local. Now, maybe you don't like to use the word politics for the school referendum, but the truth is that it is a special election, and only people who are registered voters in Marlborough Township get to decide the outcome of this. And as we are all well aware, those decision makers may only be perhaps 15 to 25% of the registered voters. So I want you to think about that as we discuss what we can do in terms of referendum communications. I would provide leadership, and my own background is initially in terms of formal education in mathematics and economics with a degree from UConn, and later in architecture from Drexel University. I was a registered architect in New Jersey for many years, but I gravitated toward the business sides of things, and I was a marketing and communications director for many architectural firms in Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. The good news is that we are passing referendums. If you will look at that list on the right, that is just those referendums on which I have consulted in this last school year. There are 9 of them, and they are valued at over $200 million. They are approved. I would point out, because I know the kind of characteristics of yours, that in Phillipsburg, that was a referendum without any tax impact, as you were trying to do. And in West Devon Township, there was an element of a very large pre-K element to that district. So I'm kind of familiar with those elements. But there is mixed news. Really, referendums in New Jersey over time, it's like a pendulum that swings one way or another, anywhere between 50%, and in fact, last year's high of over 80%. So there's no guarantees that referendums are going to get approved, and it is a good idea to use a consultant. My own views is it happens to be Benjamin Franklin, and people used to say, if you wanted to have something civic-minded passed, what did Ben Franklin say about it? So I too go to him for some of my information. The biggest one I use is something that he said about the Constitutional Convention, and that was that a whole bunch of different people got together in a room with differences of opinion and different passions and interests. He asked them, from such an assembly, can a perfect production be expected? It therefore astonished me, sir, to find this system approaching so near to perfection as it does. The system that he's talking about is collaboration and participation, and I heartily endorse it in terms of your communications program. In fact, what I like to say we're doing is taking your common sense, the board's common sense for direction for the school district, and making out of that common cause. Let me just say that the common cause is participatory and collaborative with your constituents. Regarding common sense, I just want to again bring Ben Franklin in here. He said, remember not only to say the right things in the right place, but far more difficult still, to leave unsaid the wrong thing at the tempting moment. So one of the things that we will do in terms of communication plan for your referendum is have everybody on the same page in regards to what it is we are really presenting to the public, and you know the right things to say and how to describe the project. You have to know your audience. This is like ground rule 1, and I'm sure that everybody understands that. But it's not just who are all of the school organizations or associations that we can tap into, but it's how can we assess other persons in the civic and social organizations within town, and we have to look at those. I do believe that it is a kind of data-driven program, and that is that we have to look at the analytics in regard to elections, and we'll talk about that just a little bit later in the presentation. But that too is part of knowing your audience. Whoa, that was kind of quick. Yep. So I want to say one final word, though there's never a final word, about the difference between transparency and participation. Transparency is kind of like that cold handshake. It's arm's length, and it's begrudgingly saying, I know I need to give this information to the public. It is called for and it is necessary. I say you go far beyond that into this participation and collaboration in terms of getting the word out, and that's more like an around the shoulder hug and and saying, come on, we're really in this together, and that's the way I want us to proceed with the public in terms of the communication plan. And it is a plan. You have to write out the who, what, why, where, when, and how of everything that you're going to do, and you stick with it and you monitor that plan. Ben said, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. We use all the traditional methods. These are things that you could well imagine that might even have been used 20 years ago, like newsletters, exhibits on tables at meetings and school events, regular newsletters, old letters to the editor. We do tabletop displays often. We do facility tours. All these are the routine things that you might have found in your school district many years ago. Today, of course, we're also talking about social networking, and we will construct for you the content and the page itself for a web page for the referendum. We do tax impact calculators so that the voting public can put in their assessment on their house and get a specific number for tax impact. In Phillipsburg, where there was no tax impact, for instance, we still had the tax impact calculator, and it came back 000 with a big flashing thing. Yes, remember we told you there's no tax impact. So there's lots that you can do on that sort of thing. We do make use of your telephone trees and your email blogs and all that sort of thing. And most importantly, I have a son who's a videographer, and we will come in district and bring our camera and teleprompter and have some personality type people in your district do videos that play well on the internet. Finally, we get to what I call enhanced outreach, and this is the community organization part. I take 10 years of history of voting here in Marlborough and reduce each voting person what could be, let's say, 30 votes. If it was several special elections, school elections, municipal elections, national elections over a 10-year period, let's say there might be 30 of them. I reduce them to one line for that one person, and I get a frequency of voting for that person, and I can tell, oh, they come out for municipal or government elections, but guess what? These people never come out for school elections. So I have that kind of information on everybody in your district. I cross-reference those voting lists with your parent list, and I find out, and if you listen to me closely, somewhere between 30 and 50% of your parents will be registered. 30 and 50%. The highest district in which I had voting parents was Moorestown, New Jersey, 55%, and it's been as low as 18%. So don't be surprised by how few of your parents are registered to vote. So what does that tell us? That tells us we want to do a voter registration program with parents, and that has to be done before September. So I am talking about a program that includes some outreach over the summer. Just briefly, what I do is I merge those two lists, parents and voters, and I also then plot them on a map. I read their names into a mapping program, and I put a little area around about 100 voters, 50 households, and I now have what I call a neighborhood. We will look at that neighborhood with some of the key people on the Board of Education, some of your PTO people, key communicators, whoever. And from each one of those neighborhoods, we will try to enlist or recruit a parent who will, if you will, do the outreach in that neighborhood. Okay, collated list, all people right in that person's neighborhood, would you please reach out to them? Reach out might be, I see you're not a registered voter, will you please sign up to register? Later in the program, it's do you know all the information you need in order to cast a vote? So there's a lot of work there in this community organization piece also. I could talk for much longer, but I hope you get the idea between the mapping of the neighborhoods, having a designated list. I write the scripts for the volunteers who do this kind of activity, and do all kinds of helps and organize them along the way. We put them in shared files out on the internet, and we get the job done. The most important thing is to be, if you can, a bit persuasive. If we can't get a no vote to change to yes, that's all right, but we should make every attempt. And in doing that, we will make it clear, we will make it easy, and hopefully there will be this upswelling of support, and we will make it popular. Surveys and studies have shown that popularity, in fact, is what makes people switch votes from no to yes. That is jumping on the bandwagon. People do want to do what their neighbors are doing. big piece of this is asking for those helping hands, if you will. The recruitment program gives us an opportunity to reach out to at least one of those persons in every neighborhood. And then it gives them an opportunity to really participate in the program. And we know that that kind of helping and participating causes people to take ownership, and they do become yes voters themselves, and they bring people with them. So in summary, what I've said is we will do social networking and outreach. It's going to allow for collaboration and recruitment that leads to that participation in the ownership. It'll generate popularity, and that leads to referendum approval. Looking at some of the data for your district, we had 2 referendums in the last 10 years. Back in 2005 and again in 2009, 13% of your registered voters showed up for the referendum back in 2005. Only 5.6 showed up for the referendum in 2009. So you can see that if there isn't some sort of get out the vote, it is left up to happenstance. In one case back in 2005, you lost the referendum, and more recently in 2009, you won with those votes. There's 28,000 voters here in Marlborough. So you can see that this kind of participation, where the highest number is about 6,000 voters, only brings out about 22%. More important, perhaps, is the yes and no vote analytics. And here we can see that the highest no vote was in 2010. Now that's when there wasn't an awful lot of political stirring up, if you will, regarding educational matters at the state level, and a lot of people came out to vote. But that was about 3,044 was 3,000 no votes. So to target perhaps our yes vote and to ensure where we're going to go, we probably want to do at least 1.5 times that 3,000. We're looking for 4,500 yes votes, and we jump from there to begin to look at your list and determine where it is that we want to go. There's many challenges before the board. I haven't begun to touch on them, even though you have a very simple, do we want to do full day kindergarten? It looks like a simple issue, but people will look at the timing of it and go, gee, we're still not out of the recession, is this a good time? They'll look at the price. Price is always like flabbergasted people, it costs that much. You know, there will be others who have special interests like sustainability and want to know, are they being incorporated into the project? There's all kinds of reasons why people can come out. They will all have opinions on this project, and they will all let you know them, and you need to have an answer for each and every one of them. Again, getting back to Ben, remember that investment in knowledge always pays the best interest. That's what we want to convey to the parents out there. My parting thought is one of the articles I wrote for School Leader magazine. The title was "Every Referendum is a Success, but only some are approved." A referendum isn't to go out and ask the people what do they think. You've made a recommendation. So when you get that answer back, whether it's yes or no, that's a success. Think about it. It shouldn't make you feel comfortable. Thank you for your time.
Anybody have any questions? Thank you, sir.
Mike,
Yeah.
we do get it. I think I read. So I think we have the cost information related to the 2 proposal, right? So,
Cost information.
Change 18,000 for their.
But the referendum was proposed?
Yeah, if I could clarify, and you're doing it in 2 parts. You can just buy communications if you want for somewhere around $10,000. That's negotiable based on what you want. We haven't had any discussion at all as to what you want in terms of newsletters or videos or that sort of thing. The 10,000 is all in numbers, pretty much the max that you can do in communications. And 8 if you want to use a community organization term, where we go out and try to organize your
Thank you.
Sir, one question.
I just had a quick question. It's my understanding that by law, the board is not allowed to spend public dollars to say to the public, vote yes, we can provide information. And so is that the way your services are tailored?
Absolutely. They could possibly be.
I saw some things that said up there, vote yes, and that's why it led me into the question.
tell people on the side that they can do that on their own, they certainly can. In fact, you could go, yes, sign and put them on your wall. You have the option to express your personal opinion.
Correct. But just that the board can't spend public dollars.
Correct.
Thank you.
The next firm up is Zander Consulting. Everybody, Terry and Zander.
George said everything I was going to say. I appreciate your time, and I understand I have about 30 minutes to go through this. I'm kidding. You've already been here a long time. I apologize. I will be brief, and some of what I am going to say is repetitive, so while I don't want to sound like I don't have the same things to talk about, I do want to touch upon a few things that do differentiate us, for lack of a better word. Who we are, who is Zander Consulting? We're a marketing communications firm that specializes in public referendums for school districts. We've been around for about 12 years. We have about an 85% success rate and have worked on referendums ranging between $2 and $83 million over that 12-year period. There was a period of time, a very dark period in referendum history, when the accountability regulations came into effect and the School Construction Financing Act dried up their money, and the schools weren't holding referendums. So for a long period of time, a couple of years anyway, things got rather quiet. They have begun to pick up. School districts are pursuing ROD grants, financing is still low, so there are more opportunities to secure funding and success at the polls. And basically, we develop our program based on what a district needs. Oftentimes, we work with school districts who don't have internal personnel dedicated to this kind of activity. And so we really just support what you may already be doing or help guide you through a process based on a strategy that we've developed over a period of years. And at our firm, we have writers and graphic designers, and we have project managers who facilitate the process and work with you to move it forward. What do we know about Marlborough Township Schools? We know a couple of things, not a whole lot, and that's where we rely on you and working in conjunction with you to develop a plan that will best meet your stakeholders' interests. We know you're a KA district and you send your kids through the regional high school program. I heard this evening that your enrollment is up over this number that I have here. I heard a number of 5262. So my number is using a little bit outdated data. And again, I just mentioned that you don't have a communications professional on staff. My colleague George has already mentioned your referendum history, but here again, we looked at your referendum history, the dollar amounts, the successes, and what the projects entailed. We also looked at your budget history because, again, not every district has a referendum over a short period of time, but until 2012, you had budget votes. And this looks at through 2002 through 2012, your budget history. And what I paid attention to in particular were the total number of votes that were cast in the 2006 election, where we showed the highest number of participation, albeit low, considering your registered voters. But again, we had 6,000 people come out, almost 6,200 people come out, the bulk of which voted against your proposal. But here again, we look at this data too, so we understand and recognize who our stakeholders are, and what our audiences are, and what the history has been. As George mentioned, people don't come out. People were here earlier this evening. I got excited. I pulled up and there were all these cars. I said, wow, people are here. No, to see me, I had to park on the grass, and I hope my car's still there. What I did notice, people come out when their kids are involved. But when it becomes emotional issues outside of your children and things that affect your pocketbook, people come out. So that's why we wanted to look at both your referendum history, because it's relevant to what you're talking about, a referendum, potentially in September, as well as your annual operating budget. So we could better understand our audiences. I hate the word public relations, I apologize, because we're about communicating, and communicating is what this is about. It's an exchange of information, it's an exchange of factual, timely, consistent information information so that everyone understands the messages and what the needs are here in the district, and that's our objective, to communicate throughout the process, beginning with how the project got started, what is the need, and how to best articulate that. And again, it's an exchange because we need to gather information from your public as well as it relates to what they're feeling, how they think this works or doesn't work. You have a very articulate, engaged audience earlier talking about issues that are important to them. You know, that's not something people are... It was very interesting to me to sit here in the audience and listen to people doing all that research and coming up with matters of interest to them and asking for your assistance. So that dialogue is very important moving forward. Our services, again, we develop our programs based on what you're most interested in receiving, but it's everything from strategy and consultations to the press releases related to the media, the traditional marketing, key communicators, website, social media, and open houses. So it's a combination of all of those things and taking into account all the things that you already have in place. You already have a Facebook page, you already have a website, you already use some of these interactive methods of communication. This is really hard to read. This is a strategy. And what we did was we said, you know what, if we were hired and we started working with the district, we developed a plan. And our plan, again, this is us working in a vacuum. And what this did was, and I have a copy of this, which I will leave with you, all of the activities, assuming we got to work right away, because we talk about timing, a lot of things have to happen leading up to the vote date. And you see all of those services that we mentioned in the prior slide with the meetings and consultations, the press releases, a proposed timeline of all the activities that would occur leading up to a September 29th vote, if that in fact were the referendum date. And again, I will leave each of you with this schedule. The bottom line is we are here to support you and to your, I believe you're the board's attorney, correct? We've had this dialogue before over the past, and it is true. You as a board cannot spend taxpayer dollars promoting the referendum. And we are not suggesting that in any way. We recognize and are very clear with regard to the law. And while I'm not an attorney, I do my best to protect you, to ensure that I'm not steering you incorrectly with regards to referendum. You will never see the words "vote yes" in any publication, any posting, anything that we create or we recommend. What the public does as individuals, certainly they can do whatever they want, and they do, as you well know. But we have found ways to, I'll use the word, seize opportunities. For example, the accountability regulations called into question years ago color and types of paper and things along those lines. And so a lot of districts were very fearful of sending anything out to anybody because they thought they were spending taxpayer money in contradiction to the accountability regulations. We have often been asked this question: are we permitted to send out a newsletter? Are we permitted to even hire you to do work for us? And the answer is yes. You have a responsibility to communicate to your community in any way that they can, so they are informed when they show up at the polls. And sometimes pictures and color gets people's attention, but people are concerned about the costs associated with that. So we have often suggested and solicited donations for the color portion of your publication so that you get the information out there, you get it in a format that the people will pay attention to, and you will receive a donation for that color portion. And it's not as much as you think, but the bottom line is you're being transparent and you're doing well with you have a responsibility to do, and that's communicate with the public. So again, I'm going to leave them copies of this timeline with you. Oh, yeah.
I said it.
I didn't do the PowerPoint at all. Okay, so you already have that, and I think that's all I have. Yeah. So, does anybody have any questions?
Great.
I think it was one of your first slides, you had 85% success rate.
Yep.
I'm assuming that means past referendums?
Correct.
And what would you say would be the percentage that would fall within the amount that we're looking for? Like, in that...
Well, quite frankly, I don't know the amount you're looking for, because I don't know that, I'm looking at it.
Let's say it was around what? 20 million? 20 million, because I know you had a wide range there, it was like 2 million,
Yeah, 2 to
60 something, so.
The amounts, I've never done it that way, but I would have to say that it's still in the higher range. The $83 million obviously was successful. The average of the 83 is, you don't see that, okay? That was down in Greater Egg Harbor, where they got state funding. They're, at 63% or some ridiculous number. So the average is probably in the range that you're looking at, and that average is probably in the 80% range, I'd say. The difference between success, in my opinion, having done this for a number of years, is when there is ownership of the project, and that is usually the community participating in the development of the plan. If you have strong administration and leadership, and you have consensus among the board. I always ask the question when I go in, how did the board vote when they decided to move forward to referendum? Was it unanimous? Because I've worked in districts where it hasn't been, and that sets the stage for probability of a favorable outcome. So the amount doesn't matter so much as it does the other elements, the communication, the ownership, and the involvement of the community, in my personal opinion. That's where I see the greatest success. And again, we talk about, I worked in districts where there was a $2 million referendum and it didn't pass because there were too many issues relative and too many unanswered questions. And nobody was willing to step up and respond to those questions. We talk about, being transparent, we talk about being responsive. You have to have answers for everything. And they're not contrived, they're the facts. And that's very important throughout this process. If you don't have the answer, we've got to go find the answer. It's not something we're making up just to satisfy the audience.
I know you gave us a price on your timeline. You had the word option written on some of the meeting dates, I think. And I know you've given us also printing is not included. So are those things on the cart type prices that come in addition?
The printing, anytime you print anything, that's done by an outside a vendor. And you very well may have a vendor want, but you can't do anything. And everything that's created, just to add one thing, anything that's created is done so that it can be downloaded from the website, PDFs, all that kind of stuff. So people who want to look at it at midnight, can go to the website, look at it at midnight. I heard somebody mention Wegmans, standing out for the Wegmans with your table and all that kind of stuff, because people you're all relationship based, right? You know people, and people want to talk to people.
All right, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, thank you.
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Okay, thank you both for presentations. Okay, pass this way. We just turned now. No, you got that?
No, I can show you guys. I can be online and show you guys.
Are you on the phone?
So, at the last meeting, you requested just to take a look at the district online version of Strauss estimating. So, just thank you. So, just to show you two quick things here. On our district homepage now, under board policies, and I want to thank Mrs. Rosenwald for this suggestion and Teresa Molinelli for making it happen so quick. We now have a link that you can click on to go right to the search feature with Strauss. So then you can just jump right in. So this is what the public has right now, and this is what you as board members would have as well. So you can go right to search, or if you want, you can just go right to the title page. And again, with this, when you go on, if you wanted to look at pupil policy, you can go right to all the policies right there. When you click on them, say this one here, you get the full policy, and then you can click right in, and you get to the regulation. Of course, you pick one that doesn't have a regulation, but normally you just follow that one. The other part of it that we have a limited number of logins is the ELAN or the district online version of this. Now, additional logins are available if we want to purchase, but if you get this, you get this look, and a couple things that you get the policy alerts. All right, sorry, they're blocking me out. It's $95 a month.
A year?
$95 a month.
You're going to have access to 6A, you're going to have access to 18A, you're going to have access to the policy alerts. Now, honestly, the policy alerts, you're going to have anyway as part of the policy committee. So if you want to do anything, buy an extra 3 licenses, we should. Buy an extra 2 licenses.
I think 2 is more than enough. Again, if users already logged in, we'll put that in an upcoming meeting. Sound good?
It's, you know, again, it's, you're getting a direct link to case law and code. It thinks I'm logged in. I was logged in earlier. It logged me out, so. Don't know what to say.
Let's just refer back to policy. Let's have policy, check it out. I think that would, at this point, make the most sense.
You got it?
Did you?
Well, Mr. Below.
It was probably, I think, it's probably, I think, yours.
Better log out there.
You see where the people are with them?
Okay, so here's the difference.
Ready?
You get 18A, 6A, and you get their digest.
You click on the digest.
So if, whatever topic you might want to research. So,
Really, that pulls strictly from
case law. So this gives you all the latest case law that affects something, pending charges. You get this.
This shows the baseline policies, right? Show the baseline policies before we've changed anything to the Genesis. Us was to show operating. When we log in, it shows operating.
Well, no, you want to go through our district homepage to see
Right,
ours.
so the value, again, the value of this is to compare any time during the year. Not what we changed, sure what we changed.
Question. Does the policy group have access to this?
That's what we're talking about. See if you have how many licenses to apply.
Because that's a lot of money.
Okay. Good. Thank you, Craig. So what, like Dr. Gibbs suggested, why don't we take that to the next policy?
You got it. Mr. Vaughn?
No more presentations, right?
No. Mr. Vaughn, you're in charge of getting a response back from the policy committee about what they'd like to recommend to the board. Please.
But I suggest if you're on the policy committee, you didn't get enough information, that you go into Mr. Vaughn and dig into it.
We can do a deeper dive.
Do a deeper dive before you make a
Absolutely.
decision and coming back and giving us a recommendation.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Okay, financial and business, page 11. We have 27 resolutions, page 11 to 22. We have any changes to this before we read?
No.
Debbie, am I reading? Page 11? Are you good?
Yes.
Thank you.
Financial and business operations matters. The superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. Number 1, transfers. 2 is the bills. 3, secretary, monthly reconciliation reports. 4, travel. 5, travel redeemed. 6, travel DNE. 7, travels to Marshall. 8, travel D Mathis. 9, travel D Roosevelt. 10, harassment, intimidation, bullying, HIV report.
allowed to say no to an item within a category?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, number one for the Chromebook bags, what I was going to ask for was just, is this a matter of timing issue that we are transferring money for the bags before we actually get the proposal in our hands regarding how we're going about this? Are we?
Well, I mean,
I know we all agreed to it, I'm just asking, is this a timely matter
Cindy, timely manner, correct?
for the transfer?
In order to ensure,
Yeah, because I've got to order them and get them in here close to the end of the year.
in ordering roughly 2,000 bags is a significant purchase.
This 2,000 bags that we're ordering, this is in the anticipation that they're going home. Yes, right?
Yes.
All going home.
Yes.
To be covered and
And or being carried
carried
from classroom
from
to
class to
classroom.
class. They're going to be
Moving.
moving in their cases.
Yes.
So whether they need to be out in any case. Have to be in a
If
case.
they move, we have to be
Has
in case. Absolutely.
Can you, I don't know if this is the time to talk about it or not, but I know the fee is out there at 35.
Yes.
And I was a little shocked to hear that it was, not 50, I thought it was 50, and I thought it was $35 for the Chromebook fee and 15 for the case. Now this is 35 for both, correct?
35 for both, yes. The tech committee, we discussed this. Last time that we talked about this, the fee was in addition to the $35. And this time, the tech committee talked about the fact that we, as a group, decided that it would make sense to just simply distribute pay for the bags.
The tech committee didn't come back to the full board and tell us that, right? The tech committee. Did it?
No.
Did it. So on that note, of the tech committee, Cindy, on the 817 award of contracts under state engineering, is that what we discussed at the last buildings and grounds? Yes. But that, again, we didn't come back to the entire board to tell them that's what we were suggesting, right? We always would make decisions in the buildings and grounds, and we would come back and we would explain to the board what we did, what decisions we made, and what we were recommending before we ever put it on, didn't we? Before we ever put it on the agenda. Not necessarily, sometimes they come the same. So me, Mike, were at that meeting. Mrs. Rosenwald wasn't there as me and Michael, and we were told this, but we never brought it back to the board to discuss. But,
Cindy, you want to?
yeah, I like if she can explain to that.
Absolutely.
Because I like her to explain why we went with them, and that it was a better price, and that you researched it. I want that known. Okay. Because we're saving money. Yes, you are. And then, Okay. At the Buildings and Grounds Committee, one of the things I've been working on for the past few weeks, a month or so, after I found out the township was doing a big paving project, was trying to piggyback on them and in a cost sharing manner, thinking, okay, I can get their engineer at a lower price, maybe help us and do, because there's things we need to have done. We need the transportation parking lot. We need Dugan's Center in their parking lot redone. We need some areas at Middle and out here at the lower end. We need work there too, paving work. And at Dugan, their playground needs to be an area where all the kids play basketball and stuff. That needs to be redone. Thought this would be a great idea. The day before the committee met, I'm talking to the township BA and I'm saying, look, your pricing, you've got to do something about your pricing for your engineer because it's way too high. And he said, I reached out to somebody else and they came in at $600 less. Now you're talking in the range of $80,000. One was $79,008 and the other one was $79,200. That afternoon, I called up our engineer that we have dealt with, who was our engineer for the Asher Homes Robertsville paving project that expanded the parking lot and stuff. I said, can you give me a price? Can you do this for me and get it done over the summer? He said, okay, give me some time. Within an hour, I had a proposal for him for $41,000, which represents half of what we would have paid. The township wanted it was 10% of the engineering, like they charge 10% of the engineering costs. Is that how it works? No, the whole price, our engineering cost would have been $79,000.
If we went with the township.
If we went with the
Because they
township.
were at 10%, their engineering across the street charges 10%, where you got it negotiated down to like 5 point.
Yes, I'm sorry,
So
yes.
I
It's
understand
the
township
project.
was 10% and you got
Correct.
almost
The project we estimated to be about $745,000. And so that their $79,000 fee represented about 10%. When I went back and historically looked, and I knew right away, we don't pay that much for it. We pay in the ballpark about 5, 6 or so. His price actually came in at 5.5% of the total project. So we saved money and did very well for us.
Good job.
Thank you.
For purposes of full disclosure, I'm going to say no to the Chromebook bags for 2 reasons. One, as I stated before, till we lighten the load, sending kids home at this point, and we were all wanted to do it last year, 40% of parents and guardians said no. Until that number changes and I'm comfortable, I'd hate to see 40% of Chromebook bags sitting on the shelf. So before we spend that money, I'd rather see who's buyers and who's not. Because
You just said it, John, that they're not going to be sitting on the shelf, they're going to be moved around the buildings. Even if they don't.
kids don't take them home, they're not going to be taking them bags.
No, they're going to be in bags within the school, they're going to be in bags.
How can they?
Because the kids are going to be transferred.
But they're going to be charging them up at night. They're going to be taking them out of the bags. I'd like to see a full plan before I spend $45,000. Fair enough? Don't have to agree with me.
Yeah,
You can do what you want.
Okay. I'll also remind the board on item 12 is our annual evaluation. We all got copies of, so now's the time. If you have any comments on it, we'll discuss it. Any comments on it before you vote on it, now's the time.
Sorry, I can't.
Annual evaluation, our board evaluation is item 12 right here. So anybody have any comments or wants to discuss it, now's the time. We're voting on that 12.
I would like to just add to that also is that we did clarify, the last meeting you had asked, because of the change in the policy, if school boards is going to be doing the process every year, and yes, they are.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else?
Is this board evaluation only for us to see, or is this public? It's public. Will it be online for them to see, or is it just
Doesn't
they
have
ask?
to be, it's up to you.
Okay, just wondering. If they want to see how we evaluate ourselves, if they can ask for it?
Well, I don't know what question.
Okay. Just wondering.
Okay. What else financial? Can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Dean?
I'm going to abstain on my travel, which is number 5. Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes, to everything except in one, the need to purchase Chromebook bags for students.
Mrs. Ennis?
I'm going to abstain on the travel. Number 6. I'm going to abstain on the Chromebook bags.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes, except the Chromebook bag. Abstain.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes to everything, but I'll abstain from number 7, which is my travel.
Mrs. Matos?
Abstaining on number 8, my travel. And I'm abstaining on Chromebook bags as well, until we have further information. And yes to everything else, please.
Mr. Lewanski?
Yes.
Doesn't carry. Transfer doesn't carry. Yeah, just that one transfer doesn't carry.
Okay, moving to page 23, curriculum matters. One resolution. Vicki, please.
Curriculum matters. The superintendent of schools in the following
So GMJ requires us, obviously, to do a host of things, one of which is teacher observations. We have several different venues in the school for input. We have school-level skip committees that then feed into our DAC committee. That's called the District Evaluation Advisory Committee. That committee is comprised of teachers, administrators, myself, Mr. Malone, Mr. Vaughn, and that committee's purpose is to essentially guide the evaluation process. In order for us to change the way that we do observations, and there was information in the green notes, what we're asking for here is that DAC committee is going to meet, and we're going to come to a joint decision about whether or not we want to change the look of our observation process and protocols. In order for that to happen, you have to approve the concept of a waiver. However, it does not guarantee that the protocols that currently exist will change. What it means is you just have to approve the fact that if the DAC committee agrees jointly to move in a direction that would change, you would allow us to submit that to the state. Now the state would still have to approve whatever observation process was asked. Mr. Malone, ready?
I would like to add one piece. This waiver the intent is not to make observations easier for administrators in the district. It's to make for more meaningful observations of teachers and to have those conversations with teachers to improve their teaching craft. In some cases, I provided an example in the green notes for you, where an administrator would conduct fewer observations. However, in doing so in some of the models, there actually may be more observable time. So we have taken feedback from the staff regarding this via informal conversations and more formally via a Google form recently. And
with the entire instructional staff.
And we will bring all of those results to the District Evaluation Advisory Committee in June 9th. And as a committee, we'll come to a decision. But right now, we're just asking the board to approve the concept of this waiver so we can move forward, because this is something that's required that we present to you. And if you're gracious enough to approve that waiver or the proposal, then we can move forward with the District Evaluation Advisory Committee and move that onto the DOE.
You're asking us to approve a waiver, and then you're going to have the committee come up with different options. Where does the board get involved? What does the board at any point get involved in what final decisions you're making as it relates to your observations of tenured and non-tenured teachers?
It's a great question. It doesn't. You agreed to submit the waiver. That change has to run through the DAC committee by code.
Debbie's on the committee.
Yeah. Has board representation.
You weren't here when she explained it.
Teacher representation, administrator representation. The setting of the observation process really isn't a board decision. Technically, I have the ability really of delegating to the DAC committee what power I would like to delegate. So, however, what I've been choosing to do is to be transformational, and we're going to go to that group and we're going to discuss all of the options that are there. And I think there were 4 options that were on that Google form. The 4th option being essentially, tell us one of the 3 options. If there's an option that we didn't present to you, tell us another one. So how that information travels, we have school improvement panels that exist at every school. They get together, they talk about the observation process, they talk about Achieve NJ. The topic of a waiver came up and flowed through the school improvement panel, which is what it should do, to the District Evaluation Advisory Committee, and that's where we are right now. So I know it sounds like a foreign concept. What I need from you is the ability to submit a waiver, and then what will happen next is that whole committee will convene again. Debbie was on it. And we're going to sit down and we're going to sift through the entire data and make a reflective decision based upon that data.
I guess what's foreign to me is asking me to say yes to a waiver,
Yes.
but that to me is very bizarre. Yes to a waiver, but after that, it's in your hands.
Yes.
So why not get involved in saying yes to a waiver to begin with?
It's technically a proposal. It's a proposal for the waiver, so it's not the actual waiver yet. It's an approval
Yes.
of the proposal of such waiver.
Because the state would have to approve it. I understand
Okay.
absolutely what you're saying,
Us telling you
John.
it's okay
Thank you,
to
Mike.
go.
To propose.
Propose.
Yes.
It's us telling you,
No, I heard Mike loud and clear. Thank you.
I just want to make sure that's I understand.
You got it. That's it.
Anybody else on the curriculum? Can you please call the roll?
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Annie?
Yes.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
And Mr. Lewanski?
Yes. We have personnel matters, page 24. We have 37, 27 resolutions plus one addendum. Number 28, we have any changes before I read? John, do you mind? Page 24?
Me?
Yes, sir.
Superintendent of schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, retirement. 2, resignations. 3, reemployment certificated staff. Number 4, school psychologists. Number 5, non-aligned certificated administrators. Number 6, non-aligned non-certificated administrator. Number 7, special education instructional assistant, 2015-2016 school year. Number 8, amended salaries, school psychologist. Number 9, amended salary, building and grounds, 2015-2016. Number 10, employment, additional teaching time. Number 11, reassignment, certificated staff. Number 12, reassignment, transfer, non-certificated staff. Number 13, transfers. Number 14, guidance, summer work. Number 15, substitute teachers. Number 16, substitute nurse. Number 17, substitute instructional assistants. 18, substitute secretary/clerk. 19, substitute school monitors. 20, substitute bus drivers. Number 21, student teachers. Number 22, student internships. Number 23, student practicums. Number 24, field observations. Number 25, paid medical disability leaves. Number 26, unpaid leave of absence. Number 27, amended resolution leave dates. And I think we have the addendum, which is 28, suspension without pay.
Thank you, John. Seconded by Gianni. This is Gianni.
Thank you.
Discussion on personnel matters. Anyone? No? Any call the roll?
Mrs. Annie?
I'm going to abstain on number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7, and number 8. And I'd like to say that I'm abstaining on number 5 and number 6 because I am conflicted, not because of that work. Any of those people.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you.
And yes, to the rest.
Thank you. Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
I'm going to say no to 24, not to people, process, because they don't have background checks. And I would wish I could say no to Mrs. Talon on her resignation on number 2, but I guess I can't. She's a great teacher. Yes, to everything.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
No to number 19. Yes, sir.
And Mr. Lewanski?
Yes. Brings us to page 38, policy development.
Comments? Comments?
Oh, sorry.
Just wanted to see Mrs. Kathy Tormey began working as a lunch aide at Dugan Elementary School in 1998. During Mrs. Tormey's 17 years in the Marlborough Township Public School District, she has worked with administrators, caring and intelligent teachers, and congenial and collegial fellow lunch aides. Above all, Mrs. Tormey thrived on relationships and her connections with students and their families. Working in every grade level within Dugan, Mrs. Tormey has worked with students of all ages, all abilities, and talents. Mrs. Tormey reflected on her time in education by stating, "I'll miss the children the most. My call to do this work was always seen as an opportunity to touch the lives of children in a meaningful way." And while Mrs. Tormey vows that her days of tying shoes, opening milk cartons, and cutting meat are now ending, she secretly enjoys the anticipation that comes with one day helping grandchildren with these very same endeavors. Upon her retirement, Mrs. Tormey plans to join her husband as his retirement coincides with hers. Together, they look forward to traveling and exploring new places outside of New Jersey to write the next chapters of their lives. Our only hope is that these next chapters of Mrs. Tormey's life contain time and opportunities to visit us here in Marlborough. On behalf of a grateful Dugan family and Marlborough community, we wish Mrs. Tormey the very best on the occasion of her retirement.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the Board of Education, thank Mrs. Tormey for her 17 years dedicated to the children of Marlborough and the school district. We wish her a happy and healthy retirement. Now, page 38, policy development. Craig, you want to read it, please?
Sure. Superintendent of Schools submits the following resolutions for approval. 1, Buildings and Grounds Calendar. 2, second readings. So moved.
Thank you, Craig. Seconded by Victoria. Any discussion? Policy development. Seeing none, please call the roll.
I'm sorry.
Good?
Yes.
No problem. Please call the roll.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Ennie?
Yes.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mr. Malinsky?
Yes. Page 39, policy development regulations matters. I'm going to pull the bylaw 0152 board offices because it wasn't updated. And another one too. And bylaw 0134 board evaluation. Second read with the changes that they were advertised correctly to be on the board agenda at the next. Second reading. Sorry, sir. Okay, liaison. Liaison, New Jersey School Boards. Monmouth County School Boards. Monmouth Town, Marlborough Township liaison.
Just a few items. They asked me to pass along Community Pride Day. So on May 30th, there's a bike and ice cream run on June 6th. One of the bigger issues is they respectfully requested the administration do a presentation on the budget as quickly as possible, as soon as possible. Those are the only items.
Thank you. Pass along, Mr. Dwyer. I'll be happy to do that for you. Definitely. Everybody.
Well, I'm not going to see it until the next meeting, so you got to do what you got to do with that.
Sid, I'm going to delegate that to you now.
Thank you, John. PTO scope.
We met today, we went over a couple of items and things we were talking about. Some folks was wanting to go home and testing and some other issues, but just, I don't know if they checked their emails, but our luncheon is June 2nd.
Yes.
Next week at the board office at 12 noon, PTO presidents with Dr. Kevin.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. Freedom Regional High School.
Yes. They approved their budget on the March 27th. We went to the public on the April 16th. And let me see. Then they had a meeting on the May the 18th. And I look at it, nothing really special. It's a regular meeting. We went through a bunch of review and proof. They do prove the contract with the custodian and the engineer and the buildings services. And they are reviewing the policies. That's the policies.
Thank you. Yeah. Marlborough Township Alliance. Nobody's not here. Marlborough Education Foundation.
Yes, they're doing one of their fundraisers right now for, it's like they do, I'm trying to how to say it, like to honor staff members.
Recognition.
Thank you. Staff recognition. What you can do is The students, it went home via email. You could fill out a form and you could donate any amount of money you wish, and any staff member will get a certificate, and it's from the families, and it's really a nice thing to do. I know I sent last year to the school nurse at the middle school, and she actually called me. She was so surprised and appreciative. The staff really likes it. You do any amount to any staff member in any school, board office, anywhere you want. Sorry, bus drivers also. Bus drivers too. So it's a really great fundraiser. And what'd you say? Go back. Sorry. Just quiet. And the forms have to be in no later than June 12th. Hard copies are going home. Excuse me.
All right.
I can't do that. The hard copies are going home to the elementary schools.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Very good. Good stuff. Great stuff. I know my kids were here for stuff. That's it. Okay. Committee reports, buildings and grounds.
Yeah, we already voted for it.
I know, but we can talk about the thing we got in the state of the buildings. We have to talk about real quick about the idea that Cindy brought to us and about the track in the back of the memorial. Why can't be? Can be.
That's executive session.
Oh, okay. All right. Can't do that. So, what about the?
What about that big thing that you said, that's a question too?
No, that was just, the bedtime reading information you're talking about?
Yeah.
That was just for informational purposes for the board to see and see some of the costs and what we're talking about. What we did was we had the architect who also had the engineer look at all of our facilities, and they did a study of a facility report of all of our buildings. Basically, in that you had the big thick one which detailed everything. Then you had a small one that I did was just construction costs. That was like $36.6 million. And then I had the architect do a priority listing of things too. So, and the biggest thing in there is going to be your HVAC systems, because they're the originals in these buildings.
Right. So I just don't want to just have this and not. I'm just going to talk about it. We have some, out of the big number, we have like a 23 plus number, $1 million plus number of the have-tos.
Is this document public?
Yes.
Well, it's only a draft right now. It's not the final document.
Yeah, because I gotta be honest with you, I knew it was gonna be big. The state of the state, the state of the schools, but I didn't think it was gonna be that big.
Scary thing.
That's beyond scary big. That blew me away big time.
I remember
And
asking.
that's why I'm curious as to whether or not it's public. Because when it goes public, I mean, we're gonna be shocked.
You know, there is an exception under the Open Public Records Act to documents that are pre-decisional in nature, advisory, consultative, and deliberative. I'm not that familiar with the document. I haven't seen it. It may fit into that category, Ms. Barber. Okay. It's pre-decisional in nature?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's not complete.
Then let's hold off right now and discussing it in public.
I think it's a great document for the public to see. I think they should know.
It's not to say it won't become public, I
Oh, it will be.
Yeah.
Because I think it's an eye-opener, and I think it's going to tell people where these schools are at right now, and how much work has to be done. And I think, you know, if you look at that, look at coming out with a referendum to put 28 classrooms off school, and you look back, there's a lot to digest right now going on in this district. And I think to be fair to the public, that has to be a piece of the dialogue.
Also, we voted to approve spend the money for him to do the comprehensive study, so I think.
I think it's, by the way, I thought it was a very good, I thought it was a great document.
Yeah, it is, but like you said, it's great for the public to see that they spent the money, and this is what we got for it, because it was 137 pages long.
Also memorializes everything that needs to be done. It has to wait time.
Yes, absolutely.
And it says to the public, this is where we stand at this point in time. And at least puts that on record. And it also says, okay, here's your 40-some-odd $million number if you were to do the whole thing. But here, if you break it all down,
Correct.
it's to do the real necessities is what, 23?
Yeah.
And I think the Marlboro public has to see that, and it has to understand that, and it has to digest it, along with, you want full-day kindergarten, or you want your schools and your roofs, and you want, I mean, there's a lot of things that have to be talked about.
Very good. We have to also figure out, the first half's already 23, so there's no point in doing this.
Yeah, the other thing, what we talked about in the committee was to, Thomas, he's only been here a week and a day. So,
Did he run yet?
he's looked at it briefly, but he's got to get his feet wet. He's got to, there's other things. He is looking at it, but it's a good starting point to look at things. And some of these things in there, we can do in budgets, but your big ticket item, there's no way. Yeah, you've got original boilers in these schools. So.
Everybody has good points. All right. I think it's everything we had for tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for helping. Whole business. I know we have Chromebooks for board members on there, but maybe a little premature because we still haven't talked about policy.
Yes.
Yeah, we want to talk.
So let's hold off on that. Anybody else have any other whole business?
As relates to Chromebooks, we talked about this, instructional assistants not having the ability to even touch Chromebook, let alone be educated on a Chromebook. Where do we stand on that? Because before I sit down and say, yeah, I'll take the Chromebook here, I think instructional assistants should have it, it should be taught, and should be helping the teachers, and I'm hearing that that's not the case.
Sure. John, we discussed this briefly the other day. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I do not think that our instructional assistants should be frozen out of such a key tool that we have, and we'll take steps to make sure they have access and are trained.
Thank you.
100%.
And on the iPad.
Because they certainly want it.
On iPads as well. Every technology phone that we have, I will ensure that our IAs not only have access, but also have the opportunities for training as well.
Thank you.
John, you're asking if we purchase them for every student, just so they have access,
They
right?
need to be able to access and touch it. If they're going to be instructional assistants in a classroom, the kid says, I need help, and the teacher's on the other side of the room, they should be aware of what's going on and be able to navigate that Chromebook.
Absolutely.
Whether it be the child's Chromebook or if we would able to, before I have one here, I'd rather see them have one in their hand.
Absolutely. Michael, could you put that on the docket for next year?
Training, because I know at the last training, they said they were able to come.
They were,
Said
they did,
that
yeah.
They weren't able to touch it and
Right.
use it. So we want them to be able to be trained on it. That's what I was told. Unless we're being misinformed, that's what we were told.
When we provided training in September, we did provide Chromebooks for them. We had a few carts around, I remember around Marlboro Middle School, and they were given, I know for a fact because I did one of the training sessions, and I had an IA in there who was just elated that she was getting training on the Google platform. So we have provided training for them. Could we provide them with more access? I think we probably could. So we'll
Could it
make
be
sure.
that they're not misunderstanding that they are allowed to use them? I mean, has the district told them that they cannot touch them or use them? Where are they getting this idea that they can't use them as an instructional assistant?
No.
Does it ever come from the administration? Where is it coming from?
My feeling on this is that in professional development, when they were there, not everyone was able to touch, feel, and maybe some development, professional development, moved me over. And I think that perception might have come out there. We can go out this. It makes sense for them to have it. It makes sense for them to be trained. And I know that you will do that. So to me, it's really, it doesn't matter what happened. It matters what we need to do on a go-forward basis.
It's not a problem.
But I'm more concerned, John, that no one ever told them they couldn't use it.
You know what I'm more concerned about, in all honesty? That
I want them to know they
a
can-
penalty flag wasn't thrown at us somebody didn't yell, or somebody didn't come to you and say, as an IA, to say, geez, why aren't we involved? Was an IA get you into a principal and say, why is this way? That's more disconcerting to me. You know, but I'm not going to get into that. That's not my value. I just want to make sure it's done, and because it makes sense.
Dr. Gibson here, they've ever been told that they can't, so they are allowed to.
Absolutely never came out of my lips.
And I hear everybody say it's not going to happen, so.
Yeah.
Moving forward in the right direction. Right, thank you. Anybody? Yes.
Today's agenda is not considered old business.
What's the item depends?
Public.
Oh, that's old business.
I just wanted to put it out there because I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about all the meetings that we've discussed. Sorry, my back's to you. We've discussed Chromebooks and our future plan of going one-to-one. My abstaining, I just want to clarify with administration, is that I'm not against Chromebooks going one-to-one. I just like to see an action, that's all. And I hope that timely fashion, we can still transfer funds or whatever we need to do to order it, and hopefully we can get to a plan of action. I wanted to clarify that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Can I say this, Michael? I agree with Mrs. Maytens.
They need you to.
Sorry, I usually get in trouble. I agree with Mrs. Maytens.
All business, anybody else?
I do.
Oh, okay.
Unusual, yes it is, but I'd like to acknowledge my assistant Liz Walsh on the safety grant. She does this every year, and she comes up with ideas.
Very proud of that this year.
You did a lot of work with it. It's like, okay, and it's the smallest amount of money we've gotten, but I think it was, in previous years, it was relatively easier because it was a larger amount of money. This year, it's like, okay, well, I'm down to $3,000. Well, what can I spend on this? And what can I do to this? So, but every year she manages to do the whole thing, figure out what we're going to spend it on. Because after we got the cameras for the buses, it was like, let's be creative and how are we going to do this? So I wanted to acknowledge her for her hard work on this. So thank you.
Great work.
She arranged all the, I wondered if she always arranges all the presentations at the school where we sit, who comes, who goes. She does a lot of things.
Listen, I thought she was going to compliment you on getting me to take the governance 3 before today.
Oh, you took it? Wait a minute, what's the news guy?
I was trying to see poor Lindsay already.
Where's the transcript? Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cindy. Anybody else old? New business, anybody? Okay. Final public session. Limited to, not limited to any items. Anything you'd like to discuss with the board? Anybody in the public wish to address the board on any item? Seeing none, I'm going to read the executive session resolution. Be resolved in accordance with the provisions of the Public Meetings Act, Marlborough Township Board of Education shall conduct a closed executive session pursuant to personal legal sections of NJSA 10:4-12 for the purpose of discussing interview of supervisor of instructional technology, discussion of school safety and security, and attorney-client privilege discussion. Anticipated length of time will be, I'm going to say 60, say 45 minutes, and action will be taken. Will be taken in public after executive session. If further resolved, the minutes of executive session will be released in legal confidentiality in accordance with NJSA 10:4. All applies. Seconded by Debbie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Motion passes. I will now make a motion to adjourn executive session. Seconded by Sarah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? No. Okay. Good. Okay, we are back in session. Cindy, call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dean? Here. Mr. Dwyer?
Here.
Mrs. Eddy? Here. Mrs. Cow? Here. Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. Matos? Here. And Mr. Lewanski?
Here. We have two addendums tonight. First is in financial business operations. Debbie, you mind reading, please?
Sure. Financial business operations matters, the superintendent of schools submits the following resolution for approval. 28, award of contract, Xander Consulting LLC. I so move.
Thank you. Seconded by Victoria. Any discussion on financial business addendum? Seeing none, Cindy, please call the roll.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Mrs. Eddy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
And Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
And Mr. Lalansky?
Yes.
Thank you.
Second addendum. Oh, you're welcome, sir. Second addendum on personal matters. Craig, please.
Superintendent of Schools submits the following resolution for approval. 29, Employment Supervisor of Instructional Technology. I so move.
Seconded by Victoria. Any discussion on personal matters?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want the community to know I am voting no. Voting yes for Mr. Lindstrom because I think very highly of him. I think he's a great candidate. I think he's a great guy. I think he'll do well for this district. I am voting no because I voted no for the positions in the budget and not voting no to the candidate, voting no to fill the position.
Thank you, sir.
I think he's a very highly qualified guy. I think he'll do well for the community.
Thank you. Anybody else personal? Cindy, please call the roll.
Mrs. Matos?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
No.
Mrs. Ennie?
Yes.
Mrs. Cow?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes, welcome back.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
And Mr. Lalansky?
Absolutely yes. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Hey, go for it. Go shake it.
Can you set up my printer?
Coming back soon.
You can still shake my hand.
Just count your fingers.
Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn by
I did.
Debbie, seconded by Dara. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anybody against? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Good night, everybody.